Shocking, 70% of middle-aged women feel that marriage is a burden, and 8 unexpected reasons. Why do many women lose feelings for their husbands over the years? 43% of couples in the U.S. aged 55 to 64 want to divorce, even though they have been together for decades. Why? The woman who used to be infatuated with you, who used to look forward to every moment with you, now becomes distant and annoyed. The man who used to love and pamper his wife, now feels dissatisfied when she changes. This is not a story of just one person, but the reality that many middle-aged couples are facing. Does love really fade over time, or are there deeper psychological, physiological, and health reasons? As a nutritionist and geriatrician, I want to explore with you the scientific reasons behind this phenomenon and discover ways to help couples maintain long-term happiness. Marriage is like a garden. If not tended, it will wither over time. When young, love is full of passion and sweet emotions. But over time, many women find their husbands less attractive, sometimes even annoying, distant, and unpleasant. This is not simply due to fading feelings, but also stems from many psychological, physiological, and lifestyle factors that change with age. So what are the reasons why women gradually lose interest in their husbands as they get older? Here are 8 important reasons to help us better understand this phenomenon. I used to love every frown of his, but now, I just get annoyed when he doesn't listen to me. Linda, a 57-year-old American woman, sighed as she shared with me during a health consultation. When she was young, she was infatuated with her husband, a funny, passionate man. She loved the way he made her laugh, the little surprises he gave her, but over time, things gradually changed. The jokes she used to love now annoyed her. She felt that he no longer listened to her as before, and the distance between them grew. This is not Linda's story alone. Many women, especially middle-aged women, begin to feel that their husbands are no longer the same. This does not happen overnight, but is the result of many years of living together. When they first fall in love, women tend to overlook their partner's imperfections because strong emotions overwhelm everything. But over time, life together brings with it many pressures: work, finances, children, and the little things that used to be overlooked now become sources of frustration. Romance is gradually replaced by responsibility. Sweet dates turn into discussions about bills, about retirement plans, about children growing up and leaving home. The feeling of excitement when waiting for text messages or surprise gifts is no longer there, replaced by a familiarity that is boring. When women reach 50, not only do they change psychologically but also have physiological changes that affect their emotions. They no longer see their husbands as the ideal men of their youth. But sometimes they only see a partner who is too familiar, to the point that there is nothing left to explore. When the novelty gradually fades, if both do not try to nurture their feelings, the relationship will easily fall into a state of distance, and this is the beginning of how a woman gradually loses interest in her husband as he gets older. But there are many other reasons, and we will continue to explore. Why did what was once forgivable become unacceptable? In the early years of marriage, many women are willing to be humble and accept their husband's imperfections. A man who is quiet, awkward in communication, not good at expressing emotions, that may not be a big deal when love is still full. They tell themselves that just having feelings is enough, that some things can change over time. But then, time brings a different truth. When entering middle age, women no longer live solely on emotions. They have experienced enough ups and downs of marriage, of work, of raising children. They are used to sacrificing, being patient, putting family before themselves. But at some point, they begin to ask themselves, am I really happy? Their expectations of marriage also gradually change. They no longer want to be just a good wife, a sacrificial mother, but crave a deeper connection with their partner. They want their husbands to listen, to share the burdens of life, to care about their feelings. And if those things don't happen, the gap between them will grow wider. Many psychological studies have shown that in long-term marriages, women tend to lose patience with things they used to ignore. A study by the American Institute of Marriage and Family found that women in their 50s and 60s value sharing and understanding emotions more than when they were younger. This means that if they could accept a husband who was quiet and not good at expressing his feelings before, when they are older, they feel that it is an indispensable deficiency. What used to be a small matter gradually becomes a big problem when not resolved over the years. Besides, society has also changed, and with it, women's perception of marriage. The modern generation of women no longer sees marriage as a permanent thing. They understand that they have a right to demand more, not just fidelity, but also true emotional companionship and responsibility. If their husbands do not provide these things, they do not hesitate to question the value of their marriage, and this new awareness makes them feel increasingly distant from a husband who refuses to change. Marriage, if not nurtured, will not last forever, and when women realize that they can have a better life, be loved more, they will no longer have patience with a husband who no longer meets their expectations. Why do two people who once loved each other gradually feel alienated? Marriage is a long journey, and in that journey, each person will have their own changes. No one can keep the same personality, interests, or life views as at the beginning. Some couples grow up together, understand each other more and become more connected, but many also realize that they are on two different paths, even though they still live under the same roof. A study from Stanford University shows that, when entering middle age, more than 50% of American women feel that they have changed significantly in terms of thinking, while their husbands still maintain the same lifestyle and thinking. This leads to a growing difference in how they view life, causing things they once loved about each other to become sources of frustration. For example, a husband who was once cheerful and carefree may become irresponsible in his wife's eyes as the family faces more pressure. A husband who was once passionate about his work may have been admired when he was young, but after many years, it is seen as distant and uncaring towards his family. This difference does not happen immediately, but accumulates day by day, year by year, until both of them no longer feel as connected as before. Life is always changing, and so are people. If they do not grow and adapt together, marriages can easily fall into a state of each person's own world. That is why some women feel they no longer love their husbands the way they used to. If you find this sharing useful, please click the subscribe button or like to continue following meaningful content about health and life for the elderly. I have a friend named Lisa, and her story made me realize an important thing about marriage. Lisa, 52, is a strong and dedicated woman. She has been my friend for many years, and I have witnessed how passionately she loved her husband. When she was young, Lisa was always proud of her husband as a hardworking man, even though he was not good at helping his wife with housework. At that time, she thought it was not a big deal, but over time, the burden on Lisa's shoulders became heavier. She told me that her days started early in the morning with preparing breakfast, checking her children's homework, scheduling medical appointments for her mother-in-law, and arranging household chores. She still goes to work like her husband, but when she finishes work, instead of resting, she continues with a long list of responsibilities: cooking, cleaning, helping the children with homework, worrying about the family's future. Meanwhile, Lisa's husband, although he loves his wife and children, thinks that contributing financially is enough to keep the family stable. Lisa once told me in frustration, "He thinks he can just come home from work and sit down to watch TV, and I'm constantly busy with everything, from making dentist appointments for the children to remembering to buy a birthday present for my mother-in-law. Sometimes I wonder, if I stop worrying, will he notice?" This is not just Lisa. According to research by the Pew Research Center, although men today are more involved in housework than in the past, women still shoulder the majority of the burden. Not only do they do housework, but they also bear an invisible pressure, the pressure to remember, to worry, to make sure everything runs smoothly. And when these responsibilities are prolonged without being shared, women not only feel tired, but also gradually lose connection with their husbands. Lisa does not hate her husband, but she feels disappointed. She no longer sees him as a true companion. This imbalance, if not recognized and adjusted, can cause the couple's affection to fade over the years. If you are interested in issues of marriage, health, and life for the elderly, click the subscribe button or like to continue receiving more useful shares. It is a sad reality that many couples, after many years of living together, gradually lose their connection both emotionally and physically. This is especially true in families where the husband is too focused on work, seeing earning money as his most important responsibility, while neglecting his wife's spiritual needs. According to a survey by the American Psychological Association, APA, 67% of women in long-term marriages said they felt less loved by their husbands. At first, these changes may be small: fewer compliments, fewer affectionate gestures like holding hands or cuddling at bedtime. But over time, this lack of connection can leave wives feeling isolated, as if they were just part of the family and not the woman they loved. A decrease in physical intimacy is also a major factor. A study by the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy found that couples over 50 had significantly less intimacy than they did in the early stages of their marriage. This not only affects physical bonding, but also reduces women's sense of being desired and appreciated. When wives feel less important to their husbands, they can easily fall into feelings of resentment, loneliness, and gradually distance themselves. Marriage cannot survive on duty or habit alone. If one person no longer feels loved, indifference will turn into distance, and that distance, over time, will cause the couple's feelings to fade, even pushing them apart forever. If you are interested in topics about marriage, health, and life for the elderly, click the subscribe button or like to continue receiving more useful shares. There comes a time in life, when the children are grown, work and family responsibilities gradually subside, women finally have time to look back at themselves. They begin to ask themselves, what do I really want? What have I missed over the years? In the past, they may have put their dreams on hold to take care of their family, to fulfill their responsibilities as a wife and a mother, but when entering a new phase of life, they realize that time waits for no one. They want to find their passions again, to explore things they never had the chance to try before. Some people start learning a new subject, travel alone, or simply take time to understand themselves better. And in that process, they also look back at their marriage. They wonder if they are truly happy or just living out of habit. Is their partner still accompanying them on this journey, or have the two of them gradually walked on different paths? If the husband still maintains the same old lifestyle, does not share his thoughts, feelings, or does not grow with them, the distance between the two of them will grow. Not every woman chooses to leave, but more and more women realize that happiness comes not only from fulfilling their role, but also from listening to themselves. Some find ways to reconnect with their husbands, renewing their feelings together. Others courageously step out of their constraints to pursue a life that feels more fulfilling. Marriage is not just about growing and changing together. If you find yourself in these thoughts, remember that you are not alone. Take time for yourself, listen to your feelings, and don't be afraid to find a life that truly makes you happy. Susan is an old friend of mine. She and her husband, Robert, have been married for nearly 35 years. When they were young, they could talk for hours about the smallest things, a favorite book, an old song, or even just their distant dreams. But over time, those conversations were replaced by short, matter-of-fact exchanges. Have you bought the milk yet? There's a parent-teacher conference on Saturday. Can you turn off the lights for me? Susan realized this, but she didn't know how to change it. She tried to open up to Robert many times, sharing that she felt lost in her own home, but Robert often ignored or replied vaguely, "We are fine. Why are you worried?" Or "I am still here. Isn't that enough?" Just like that, Susan gradually stopped sharing. She felt that every time she tried to express her feelings, it only led to disappointment. The meaningful conversations that used to be had became just functional communication sentences. Gradually, the distance between them grew larger, and then, one day, Susan realized that even when sitting next to Robert, she still felt lonelier than ever. The breakdown in communication did not come immediately but accumulated over the years. When a person feels that they are not being heard, they will gradually withdraw, and the distance between the couple becomes an invisible wall. If not recognized and repaired in time, that distance can turn into resentment, disappointment, and even bitterness. If you feel like you are going through the same thing, take the time to talk to your partner. Don't let unsaid things turn into irreparable gaps. And if you want to learn more about topics like this, don't forget to click the subscribe button to continue accompanying us in the next videos. When it comes to marriage, many people may think that love, respect, and sharing are the most important factors. But in fact, sex life also plays an irreplaceable role. It is not only a physiological need but also a way to show closeness, connection, and trust between husband and wife. However, over time, many couples realize that their sex life is no longer what it used to be. According to a study by the University of Chicago, about 40% of women over 50 have problems with sexual desire, while 30% of men in this age group have difficulty with erectile dysfunction. These numbers reflect the fact that physiological, hormonal, and emotional changes can greatly affect intimacy in marriage. I once talked to Margaret, a friend who has been married for more than 30 years. She admitted that, after turning 50, she began to feel less interested in sex, work, children, and daily worries sapped her energy. Her husband, although still loving his wife, gradually became more reserved for fear of rejection. Both felt the distance growing, but neither had the courage to speak up. The fact is, when no one speaks up, silence can become a wall between husband and wife. Issues such as decreased sexual desire in women due to hormonal changes, or erectile dysfunction in men due to low testosterone, if left unresolved, can make both partners feel misunderstood and increasingly distant. But the important thing is, this is not the end. Many studies show that when couples take the initiative to talk and share their thoughts honestly, they can find ways to reconnect with each other. Sometimes, just a warm touch, a gentle word, or a little patience can help make a marriage stronger. Marriage is not a fairy tale with a happily ever after ending, but a long journey with many ups and downs. Over time, both husband and wife change in their thoughts, feelings, desires, and needs in life. The most important thing to keep a lasting marriage is not to avoid these changes, but to adapt, communicate, and share responsibilities together. As a wife enters a more mature stage, she desires understanding, support, and deep connection from her husband. If the husband does not recognize and respond to these changes, distance will gradually form. At first, it may just mean less conversation, less affection, but over time, it can turn into a feeling of loneliness in your own home. Many studies show that couples who maintain long-term happiness are not because they have few problems, but because they are willing to face and solve them together. A strong marriage is not only based on love at first sight, but also requires effort, companionship, and sometimes tolerance over many years. If you find yourself in these stories, remember that it is never too late to improve your relationship. Talk to your partner, share your thoughts, and find a balance so that both of you feel happy. If you are interested in topics about marriage, health, and life for middle-aged and elderly people, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss the next useful content.